We weren't quite sure what the Steelers were going to be. They played at times like a team that could get to the playoffs and advance. That's been your big gripe about the Steelers of recent years.
Right.
You don't want them in because they're going to be one and done. They're not going to give us a good game. It's them. It's the Dolphins. There are other teams floating around out there, like the Texans, I think, are giving off very strong
100%.
one-and-done vibes.
Right.
In fact, Texans-Steelers is the only way to avoid both of them being one and done, and that's how it's lining up kind of right now. But the Steelers have really fallen off. They don't feel like a team that can make a deep run. They don't look like a team that can get to the Super Bowl. For a while, it felt like they could. But there's nothing like 3 straight losses when the season is intensifying. That's the key. How do you look as we get closer and closer to the end? You fall apart in December, that's a problem. You step up in December, that's a good thing. And we saw 2 teams yesterday, Chris, one stepping up and one stepping off.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and again, in history, and not trying to give history lessons here, but teams that usually lose 3 games in December and do that, they're usually not teams that advance very far in the AFC playoff. Now, again, what we talked about, it's 3 of the better teams in football they've lost to, so they're certainly going to be able to sell that. And they're going to be able to sell that, hey, the Raven game, the Eagle game, it was there teetering kind of in the balance, and they didn't take advantage of it, and it flew in the other team's advantage, right? And the Eagles and Ravens, they eventually took over the football game because the Steelers made big mistakes and whatever else. But yeah, they're better than the last years. I don't have any doubt about that. Is this a year where I certainly think they're capable of winning, 1 game or more? I certainly think they're capable of winning 1. I don't know if I feel more, but even within that, you're right. It's the matchup because 1, 2, and 3 in the AFC playoffs are damn good. Like, they're Super Bowl teams, and I don't think the Steelers are a Super Bowl team. They're just a good playoff team. That's what they are. There's more offense there in Pittsburgh than years past, so that's where you hold out a little hope and go, well, Russell, he might be able to make a few big throws that they haven't been able to make in some of these playoff games to win a game and maybe make the second one really competitive. And then we know yesterday, even with yesterday, as good as the Chiefs played, Mike Tomlin said it at halftime. The Steelers are a big play opportunity type team. Tip ball, interception, they drop it. They knocked the fumble out on the punt return. It was sitting there in the middle of the field for 3 seconds. Nobody got on it. The Chiefs got it, right? It went right to the Chiefs guy. So they're going to be able to sell that type of stuff that we got to make more plays. We got to make more turnovers. But yeah, I'm with you, Mike. They're not in the same class as the Chiefs right now. That's for sure after watching yesterday.
Let's hear a little from the guy to whom all those Steelers players will have to answer today, tomorrow, the next day, and beyond for the effort that we saw on Wednesday. Here's Mike Tomlin after the 29-10 loss to the Chiefs.
That sucked, to be blunt. Not the type of ball we want to play, and really kind of eerily similar to our last performance in that we're not doing the fundamental things well enough. Got to score more than 10 points against an outfit like that. And so, you can look at it from a lot of angles. The bottom line is junior varsity. It's not good enough. We got to own that. But we also got to look at what it is we need to do different. We're not going to continue to do the same things and hope for a different result. That doesn't seem sharp to me.
It felt like the Chiefs were going to run away with it up 13-0. Then the Steelers mustered the drive that resulted in a touchdown that was called back for a holding penalty, and then came the interception in the end zone. And that was kind of the moment I was like, this just ain't their day.
Yeah,
now, they got it to 13-7.
Yeah,
they got
right.
it to 13-7,
right.
But then the Chiefs came out and overpowered them. And I think that's what this is basically coming down to. There's a talent gap between these two teams. And the Steelers have reached the limit of what Mike Tomlin can do with a magic wand to get them to be better than the individual pieces would suggest. And even with the changes they made after last year, there's a talent gap that at some point is going to be exposed. We usually see it exposed in the first round of the playoffs. And Texans Steelers, like on the surface, hey, maybe the Steelers can win, but I vividly recall a game last year early in the season before we knew what the Texans were. Pittsburgh went down there and got their butts kicked. They got out-physicaled by the Houston Texans. And maybe the Steelers will be ready this time if they have to go in a playoff game. But the other side of it, too, is like if you lose to two of the top three teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I know.
That close at the start of the playoffs.
Right.
Like, oh, hey, yeah, we won a playoff game. Now let's go get our asses kicked again. You know, I think it's harder to muster the will. He has to convince them. That's his biggest challenge. He has to convince them that the last 3 weeks were an aberration and there's a better team in that locker room than has been showing itself. Because if he can't convince them they're good enough to win in Baltimore, they're good enough to win in Buffalo, they're good enough to win in Kansas City, if he can't convince them of that, that lines up to one and done.
Yeah.
No matter who you're playing round one, it's one and done because at some point in their minds they know, what's the point? Let's just get this over with.
Well, he's going to have to sell that they're good. They can win these games, but they can't make some of the mistakes they've made, right? Like Russell Wilson can't fumble going into the end zone against the Baltimore Ravens. That changed the football game to where you were going, man, the Steelers are kind of controlling the game, and here they are about to go up, and oh, wait, and then, of course, the interception yesterday. Or like we've talked about, the missed opportunities, whether they had chances for interceptions, fumbles, all that. They're the type of team that needs those advantages. They're not good enough to beat, yes, the Ravens and the Chiefs just straight up. The game's played clean on both ways. No, they need a TJ Watt strip fumble, strip sack. They need a Minkah Fitzpatrick does something crazy too. They can't do this where Freiermuth fumbles on the sideline. They can't have Russell Wilson throw interceptions in the end zone. It's stuff like that where they have to play a clean game, and that's what he's going to have to sell on them. But like to your point, yeah, they're not in the class of the Chiefs. They're not. We saw the Chiefs yesterday. How many plays yesterday did they show when Russell got sacked or whatever else, and then they showed the sky view, and you went, well, damn, nobody's open. Spags is all over this route tree. Like, they got nothing. They know exactly what's coming. They got a guy here waiting for this guy to go inside and a guy here in case he goes outside. So they were ready. So that's one issue they're going to have there going forward with the Chiefs. The Chiefs, too, the other little unspoken thing is their D-line is getting healthy. I know there was no Chris Jones yesterday, but it sounds like he's going to be fine and dandy by the time the playoffs come around. But Charles Omeniehu's back, right? They got Dana back and healthy and playing that well. Herring's in there, the other defense head. So they got a little more depth and rotation at the D-line spot than they did early in the year, too. And we've seen that the last few weeks where quarterbacks are being harassed more on the regular and by guys not named Chris Jones all the time. And I think that's the other exciting thing about the Chiefs' defense and what they got going. So offensively, we talked about is, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy's coming along. Travis Kelce looks pretty good. And now all of a sudden, damn, defensive line's healthy. No Chris Jones, and wow, they were still over Russell Wilson and company throughout the day. And that's where, to your point and what you said, it felt like they're in a little bit of a level up compared to what Pittsburgh is as a football team.
We just played consecutively the 5 plays that ended in Russell Wilson being sacked. That was a season-high 5 sacks, and all of them happened 3.9 seconds or longer after the snap. To your point, no one was open.
Nobody.
And also, even though we saw a spry Russell Wilson get to the corner and score a touchdown, he doesn't run away from the pressure like he used to.
No, you're right.
He doesn't. He's 36.
That's right.
He doesn't get away from it like he used to, and we saw the walls close in. And that first sack with that weird put the ball on the ground, and I know he slipped, but that just didn't look like Russell Wilson. Like, you don't see him do things like that. It's good that he got on the ball and recovered it, but that was just like, man, that's not Russell Wilson to do that. You can get the ball, touch the ground.
Well, he's
on the
in
football, and there goes the ball. It's like, man, that's when I first thought this just is not going to be a Steelers day.
Yeah, well, Mike, he's like in that weird phase, I think, of like adjusting to, wait, I'm not the guy. My brain still wants to do some of the things I did 4 and 5 years ago. Right, I want to do this and make a move and put my hand on the ground and do it, but the body is not willing. It just doesn't keep up anymore. So, yeah, now it's more relinquished to pocket passing. He's got to make throws. He's got to make the right decisions. He's got to see Justin Reed on the backside there, right? And again, I thought, Nate Burleson and company kind of did a good job of explaining the play and then also showing that George Pickens didn't run the route, which certainly helped the safety to not worry about him and then turn his attention over there. But, yeah, that's where Russell he's got to play really clean that way, because in the old days, if he didn't like it, he would just go, wait, I'm not going to throw it, but I'm a good enough athlete to dance around and wait a little bit till somebody does get open. He's not that anymore. Now it's like you saw yesterday. A few of the runs, the Red Sea has to kind of part, and then he can go get 5 or 8 for a first down. He can do it that way. But, yeah, Mike, I mean, the days of him making magic behind the line of scrimmage, like the guy we see in Baltimore or the guy we saw in red and white yesterday or the guy up in Buffalo, yeah, he's not in the same class as those guys anymore, and he's adjusting. I think he's trying to figure that out.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.